The Fuel Matrix, Part 1. Understanding the fuel matrix, which is applicable to the type of narcissist that you are engaged with, is extremely useful in ascertaining how the relationship is likely to proceed, and moreover, what you can do about it. If you understand your place within that fuel matrix, you will also gain additional insight into why you are treated in the manner you are, and why the narcissist behaves in certain ways. Naturally, whilst our kind is very similar in many respects, there are also subtle yet important differences. One of those differences arises in the way that our fuel matrices are constituted. People who are unfamiliar with our kind and the differing schools and cadres tend to think of a narcissist as someone beautiful, who is self-obsessed and is always preening themselves in the mirror. Whilst that view has some applicability to some of our kind, it is not representative. By a similar token, the fuel networks which we establish vary between the different schools of narcissism. The Lesser School. Beginning with the Lesser School of Narcissist. Recognized through his lower cognitive function, lower control threshold, propensity to erupt with heated fury, aggression, and lower energy levels, as you know, there are 3 divisions within the Lesser School. There are differing considerations applicable to those 3 divisions. Number 1. The Lower Lesser Narcissist, LLN. The lower lesser is lacking in intellect, a base individual who has limited employment prospects and history, nothing by way of charm, and governs those around him through either naked aggression or being a hapless victim to con some individual into mothering him or her. He is likely to have a reliance on alcohol and drugs. He sponges off people and defaults regularly on debts and the like. He is regarded as a good-for-nothing by many people, a hapless loser who is an inelegant bully who uses brute force to get his way if somatic, and a pathetic malingerer if he is of the victim cadre. The lower lesser will have a small fuel matrix. This most likely will consist of the following. A. The primary source. This is not necessarily an intimate primary source. The LLN is more likely than any other school of narcissists to install a family member as the primary source. In some instances, this may actually be an intimate family primary source, since incest is being committed. The LLN's sense of entitlement, very low energy levels, and lack of attracting factors means that he will bully an individual into such a role. By reason of the familial collection, the LLN does not need to engage in seduction. Therefore, he will use aggression to force the victim from being a non-intimate secondary source into an intimate family source. If incest is not part of this dynamic, the LLN is still likely to have ensnared a family member as primary source, again because there is no need for seduction and the familial connection is established. If the LLN has an intimate partner primary source, not familial, they are unlikely to excel in any regard and will be plain grateful for the attention of the narcissist. The victim is highly likely to have special traits and be damaged in some way, which means their ensnarement was easy for the low-energy LLN. The intimate partner primary source of an LLN is the mainstay fuel source for the lower lesser. He has a heavy reliance on this person because the lower lesser is unlikely to work and therefore will be around the victim more than usual, and also because his fuel matrix is limited, as will be discussed further. He looks to the intimate partner primary source not only for fuel, but of course character traits and residual benefits. He has a considerable reliance on this person, and most of his effort will be focused on controlling this person to ensure they continue to comply with his wishes. B. There will be a small number of familial secondary sources. it is highly likely that the narcissist will have alienated certain family members, and therefore they either do not form part of the fuel matrix, or, if they do, it is purely from the perspective of providing negative fuel, as the lower lesser will consider them as painted black. Those family members which are painted white will be few in number. They will find that their relationship with the lower lesser is prone to volatility given the very low control threshold. C. There will either be no colleague secondary sources, because the lower lesser does not work, or if he does, they will be limited in number, being likely to number only a couple. The lack of charm and ability of the lower lesser means he is unable to cultivate an extensive network through the world of work. D. The lower lesser will similarly only have a couple of social secondary sources as friends, owing to the inability to sustain a wider network, and also his latent volatility, so that friends are lashed out at following the ignition of fury, and those friends then remain distant from the narcissist, unwilling to be subjected to a further bout of verbal and physical aggression. E. In terms of intimate partner secondary sources, the lower lesser will secure them, but there will rarely be more than one. The intimate partner secondary source is likely to be drawn from a close network, for example, sister-in-law or best friend of the intimate partner primary source, again because of the smaller social and familial network which the lower lesser inhabits, and his low energy levels, which means that the lower lesser will not put tremendous effort into securing new sources. F. In terms of tertiary sources, the lower lesser narcissist will have a low number of those also. This is because the lower lesser will either spend most of his time at home, or if he works and has some external interests, they will be limited in nature, and therefore he will not interact extensively with tertiary sources. The lower lesser has a small fuel matrix. He risks loss of secondary sources on a repeated basis and will struggle to replace them. The burden placed on the primary source is extensive, and in such situations the lower lesser is likely to keep an intimate partner primary source in place throughout a long period of devaluation, as he struggles to find a replacement for this person.